حقيقة عمر الشاكر نرحب بضيفتنا جانيس أتكنسون عضو البرلمان الأوروبي. Welcome, Janice. I was just saying to our viewers who speak Arabic that you're a member of the European Parliament for South East England. And as you have seen in the report, when the Prime Minister, which actually a very rare occasion, that she appeared with her husband, Philip, and he said he takes the rubbish out, which reminds us of the old song.
Here's a little story. To tell it is a must. About an unsung hero that moves away a dust. Some people make a fortune, others earn a mint. My old man don't earn much. In fact, he's flipping skint. Oh, my old man's a dustman. He wears a dustman's hat. He wears gold blimey trousers and he lives in the council flat.
Well, what was that? Well, from the 1950s. Why is this political correctness up in arms? She appeared human and normal. What's wrong with boys and girls' jobs?
There's nothing wrong with boys and girls' jobs. My old man takes out the dustbins as well, because that's just something that, we've divided up in our house. But you know what? More people actually watch the One Show than they do BBC's Newsnight or BBC's Today programme, and it's a ridiculous argument that they've even embarked on. In a household, you divide up the chores. It doesn't matter. I don't mow the lawn. I don't wash a car. That's what my husband does.
And Mrs. Thatcher used to get up early
Yes.
to cook breakfast.
Yeah.
What about the using spouse for election? Is it a double-edged sword, or is it actually...
I know, because people buy people, and they're very human, very normal people. It'd be interesting to see if Corbyn goes on with his spouse. I think it's wife number three. But, there was clearly a rapport there. You can't fake love. You can't fake affection. And as I said, more people watch the One Show. So they've seen her as a Prime Minister before, very ministerial, very diplomatic on the world stage. And now they see her as a woman with her husband. I think she'll go up a few percentage points in the polls.
For this one, on the European Parliament, which is the first time actually we have a member of the European Parliament. Thanks so much for coming. We had MPs, many MPs before. What's the difference? I mean, is actually spouses also go to European Parliament, or is it different?
No, my husband has never been, but I said to him, before we Brexit, he's got to come over. But being a member of the European Parliament is very different from being a member of Parliament, because the member of Parliament actually represents just 70 to 80,000 people. I actually represent 9 million people from the South East, so it's a very, very different representation and a different relationship.
So how does your surgery work? I mean, honestly, I don't know who is my MEP, but how does your surgery work?
Well, in the South East, there's actually 9 of us. So there's me, there's 2 independents now. There's 3 UKIP, a couple of Conservatives, one Labour and 1 Green, and the last remaining Liberal Democrat, thank goodness. So we represent those 9 million people, but the EU believes actually I represent 500 million people, the whole of the EU. I say I don't. When I go there, I represent the people that have sent me to the Parliament, and I'm representing them in the European Parliament.
Which is, because most of Europe is proportional representation.
Yes.
And we are constituencies. That's difficult for them to understand this. And before we go to the second half, quickly, she is not using TV debate, but she's using the old tradition of knocking on doors. You were elected, I think, well, you left UKIP, but you were staunch sort of Brexiteer. Which way actually it works better, knocking on doors, because our viewers are mixed?
There's a balance, actually. I think I love knocking on the doors. I love having street stalls. You can only knock on so many doors, because when as I said, I've got 9 million people. I can't get around 9 million, so I just concentrated on Kent, and I did a bit for Sussex as well. So you hold street stalls, stand outside the supermarkets, and TV is very powerful, radio is very powerful, and social media has become even more powerful. I'm constantly on Twitter. I will do programmes such as this. I'll go onto the BBC if it suits me to go onto the BBC. LBC is very powerful.
Well, is very good. You should actually exchange. Have you exchanged any tweets with President Trump?
Not tweets, but I was in Trump Tower on election night campaigning for him.
Ah, right. Okay. And who did you campaign in the French election? We'll come to that next one.
I did.
You did campaign for Madame Le Pen. So we can tell us about it in the second half. Now we go for a break. ناخذ استراحة قصيرة ونعود بعدها إليكم. الضيفة بتاعتنا أهم واحد نتكلم فيه الموضوع. Welcome back to Janice. We're just saying that Macron seemed to be coming with a strong anti-British message, and already he's actually jumping into Mrs. Merkel's lap.
Well, he was the EU establishment candidate, wasn't he? He was backed by Juncker. You know, this is the man that went from an elite school to an elite university and then went straight into banking. He had no experience. He went straight into mergers and acquisitions. He was put in charge of Nestle. And why was he put there? To make the money and to make the contacts. Then he worked for a hard left socialist and he was economy minister. It makes me laugh that the British media and the rest of the Western politicians are trying to portray him as a centrist. He's not a centrist.
That's an interesting thing. He sort of was a socialist businessman and the BBC rebranded him as a socialist. Is he another Tony Blair?
He's a Tony Blair character with a nice smile and a sharp suit, but behind it is a slippery snake oil salesman.
So we shouldn't buy a second-hand car from him?
No, absolutely not.
Or anything from him?
No. But luckily, you know, we can negotiate with the other states. France has always been a difficult negotiator with us. I think it goes back to historical links. I'm sad my friend Marine Le Pen isn't president of France because she guaranteed to me before Christmas we would have a trade agreement.
Yeah, this is going to ask you because you were actually supporting Le Pen, not for her person, but because she was pro-Britain. So the era of all this collective thing. Yesterday I was actually having talked to people from the Gulf. The Gulf Cooperation Council waiting 24 years for an agreement. President Hollande went to them and he came angry and said, sorry, we're going to get the agreement, Brussels doesn't want. So it's actually country-to-country agreement is better?
It is. I mean, the EU takes years and years and years to negotiate free trade agreements. With TTIP, the transatlantic American one, I was locked in a room, in a darkened room. My phone was taken away from me, and I was threatened with legal action if I divulged any of that agreement. So, yes, it is better than
And you are an elected member of
I'm
Parliament.
Elected member of
you
Parliament.
are supposed to be keeping an eye on them. So they are anti-democracy?
Anti-democracy. And look at the woman who's actually the commissioner who's in charge of trade. She's a former sociology lecturer from Sweden. She hasn't got the qualifications to negotiate free. She's not elected, and she hasn't got the qualifications in business to negotiate to deal. That's why it took 7 years to get the CETA agreement, which was the Canadian agreement. Yeah, unshackled from the EU, we can do this in a matter of months. It takes Wall Street and the City of London just a few months to actually put together trade and merger agreements. We can do the same.
So what are we supposed to do with Macron? Because you were actually in France during that time. What are we supposed to do with him?
Oh, I think we just park him to one side because, you know, he is the puppet for Angela Merkel. And there's 26 other states there. But what Macron mustn't forget when negotiating a deal for the UK is that 8% of France's exports come to this country. That's agriculture, that's cars, that's Whirlpool white goods.
What if he refuses to have one-to-one negotiation? Shall we negotiate directly with Merkel then?
It's already happening. Our Prime Minister and the trade negotiators in David Davis and Liam Fox are already negotiating. I mean, Liam Fox has toured the whole of Europe. And because it will be those Prime Ministers and Presidents that will negotiate, that will tell Monsieur Michel Barnier exactly that they will have a free trade agreement with us because their businesses are telling them to.
Let's see that last item. ختاما لما بتكون في ظاهرة أو تطور أو مرض أو وباء وزارة الصحة نقاط الأطباء بيوجهوا نصائح عامة للشعب نتيجة تزايد عدد المصابين. آخر حاجة بتهدد الصحة تزايد المصابين ومعانين المرض يعرف بإيد الأفوكادو. أفوكادو هاند أو جرح الأفوكادو من اصطدام الشوكة أو السكينة بذرة الأفوكادو ينزف يروح قسم الطوارئ. Have you had an avocado injury?
I've never had an avocado injury. I eat probably 2 or 3 a week, but the trick with it is not to actually eat them when they're rock hard because they're horrible. They've got to be softer. But it's a very middle class problem, Adele.
Okay, right. When are you going to the Parliament, European Union?
I am going on Monday to Strasbourg.
Okay, the President Antonio Tajani, can you give him this avocado, please? It's hard.
I shall. I shall hand it over from London.
Thank you very much, Janice Atkinson, member of European Parliament South East England. نشكر ضيفتنا ونشكركم كل مدينا هذا الأسبوع وإلى اللقاء في الأسبوع القادم.